Hello darlings. In this video I'm going to do my best to show you all the tools that I use for running my game. I'm going to do my best to organize things from before game, during game, and then after game. This is just going to be kind of like a hangout with me, kind of very low-key video where I just talk through all the things I use, why I use them, how I use them. Some things I want to call out. One is there are simpler or maybe easier ways to do some of the things I'm trying to do, like for example providing a wiki for my players, but I am in the middle of a no spend challenge currently 2024, so my goal as I'm trying to get through the year is to be not spending money on software or subscriptions or anything like that. So that's one of the things is if you're looking for a free way to provide lots of really cool stuff for your players, this is a great video for you. The other thing is I do use AI tools here and there. If you're sensitive to AI tools, you don't like them, you don't have to use them. It just makes my life easier. For example, I use them to transcribe my podcast, my game sessions into basically like session recaps, or I use them to convert text from Markdown form into HTML form for different tools that I use. I will show you all of that stuff. But if you don't like AI, that's totally fine. You don't have to use it. But let's get started. Hi, here we are. This is my Game Master notebook. The software is called Obsidian. One thing I did want to call out, which I forgot to mention before, is, again, this is just kind of like you hanging out with me, so I'm going to talk through my tools. It might be a little, we might go on sidetracks and stuff like that. I'll try to leave chapters down below. But this assumes a certain level of like game master experience, I guess. If you've never run a game before, if you've never if you're just getting started, this might be a little bit overwhelming, so maybe pin it and come back after you played a few games. But if you've played a few games already and you're just looking to see how other game masters run their games and what tools we use, like, come hang out with me for the next like little bit as I talk through all the tools that I use and stuff. So again, this what you see here is Obsidian. Absolutely wonderful tool. It's free to use. There's a lot of community support for it. There's tons of modules and not modules, but like plugins and really, really great stuff. If you've never heard of it before, if this is the first time you're seeing it, then I'll tell you that it does take some time to get used to or to learn how to use. I'm not going to tell you how to use it. I'm just going to tell you how I use it. And if you're interested, you can find links in the description to Josh, who has a whole YouTube channel dedicated to tutorials and whose template I am using. It's his kind of template that you see me using here. But let's get started. So let's say, on Monday, I have, right now in my time, it's Friday. And on Monday I have my game session for my campaign called After Work Adventurers, which you can watch our sessions right here on the channel. But let's say I'm getting ready to prep for my game. I open up my world folder. These are my two campaigns. There's After Work Adventurers. Now this particular campaign is a little bit of a hybrid homebrew situation. We're running. Currently, my players are going through the Hidden Shrine of Damawachan, which is a classic D&D dungeon module. You can find it in the Tales of the Yawning Portal. However, it exists in a homebrew world of my own design. So this campaign folder has the module that we're running, as well as other bits of information related to history and lore, gods, locations. I'm slowly building this out as I flesh out the world. But getting into the actual campaign itself, when I open it, I've got my book here. Everything is linked. Everything is, things are rollable. I can roll stuff in here if I want to. I've got my monster stat blocks. They're all ready to go, linked. I can pull them up at a moment's notice. And besides this, I also have a map. So I'll open up the map here. This map is using a module called Leaflet, and all these little pins here will take me directly to locations in the book. So what I'll do is I usually pin this onto the side, and then right now my players are like right here. So when they get into this room, I'll click this little wonderful tab, and it's going to take me right to that section of the room. I've got my little read aloud, some information here. photos that I can use to explain things when they get down into this hallway. I can click here, it'll take me right here. If they figure out how to get past the statue and they go up the hallway, I click on that little icon, it'll take me right to the room, and then I can pan over, and it all just works really nicely. Besides my very necessary map and my very necessary game book, I also have a notepad here, which is my session notes. When I click on this, come on now, open up. I have a chart at the top with information about my players. Now my player sheets are I run my campaign character sheets and everything out of D&D Beyond. It's one of the few tools I still have a subscription for. It's an exception for my no spend challenge. But I did import some stuff into Obsidian to make it easy to see. So this is my player. I can see their name, the player name, class, level, and then every sheet, every document in Obsidian has this properties field. So I added some additional information, including what languages they speak, how many attacks per turn they can take, what their damage, the average damage per round is, and what their hit bonus is, besides their HP and stuff like that. And I use all that information because in Obsidian, any information in here that's stored in the properties field is kind of like, you can make charts using that anywhere. So here, this is kind of like my heads up display for my players. I can see at a glance what languages they speak, what their passive perception is, and what their armor class is. And then from here, scrolling down, I have my mechanic of the day. This is something I like to run. I like to kick off my games with. I usually try to go over a mechanic that's going to be useful during the game. So, for example, this room here, as you can see, has some mud. And so the mechanic of the day is movement. And it's just talking about like difficult terrain and different ways you can move and stuff like that. And so it's just to kind of get this mechanic top of mind so that they can remember to use it during the game. Current threads. This is personal agendas, goals, missions of the characters, anything that's going on there. I like to have this at a glance as I'm prepping for the game, and then it acts as like a trigger for me while I'm playing to remind me of certain things, or that I can, if some of these things come up, I can very quickly add a little note in there. It's getting chilly it's like cold in my room here. Things the party should know. This goes back to the fact that my game is homebrewed. I'm dropping little lore seeds as they go through the room. So like, in addition to whatever the campaign module offers, I'm also offering little bits of information that the players are going to be needing to know as they go through the campaign and experience the rest of my world. So these are just little things for me to try to give the players at some point during the campaign. NPCs that may show up. Right now I have a monster, and I have the Lord of Snails. I've got a stat block right here ready to go. If they end up going into that room and they end up talking to him, I have a stat block here ready to go in case things go south, but hopefully not. We'll see. Here we've got some planned encounters, and this is just basically if I know I have a couple of encounters going, I can just hit this little button right here and it'll take me right to initiative. And let's say, they're talking to this guy and things don't go well, I can click that. It's going to add it to the initiative, and it's really wonderful. My situation for running encounters is a little bit of a hybrid mix between this Obsidian tool and my virtual tabletop software of choice, which is Foundry. I use Foundry for maps. I use it for tokens so that the players can see who's where, because my group, both of my campaigns are hybrid. Some players play from home, some players don't even live anywhere close to me. And so with FoundryVTT, which we'll get to in a second, they can see where everyone is on the map. They can see with their tokens. I have certain modules installed so they can see the health of the party members. But when it comes to stat blocks, I rather use the stat blocks in Obsidian because they're fast and pretty and easy to read, and I really don't like the stat blocks in Foundry. But I'll show you all that stuff later. So there's that. If I know I have an encounter coming up, I have a separate sheet here called the DPR calculator. This gives me some information at a glance. Again, this is all based on information that's stored here in each player's player page, I guess, and it's information that I've input directly from their D&D Beyond character sheets. Oh damn it, I closed everything. Just wait a moment while I let this all open up back up again. But essentially with this here, let me close this out to make more space. So with this here, this is just some charts that I took from a website. I will link to the site in the description. I made a whole video about this, which you can check out. But because I have certain bits of information about the players on their sheets, I can see at a glance what their damage per round is. The average DPR based here, the DPR for example, Ares is slightly optimized. Level 5 character, she's doing on average around 20 points of damage. And then here we have like the to hit ratio. So, during battle, you want your players to be able to be successful on their hits roughly 65% of the time. And so a level 5 character, depending on how they built it out, should be hitting they should be adding additional 7 to their to hit. When they roll that d20, they get to add their modifier to hit. If they, depending on how they spec it out, they should be hitting roughly around 7. And so I can take a quick look and be like, okay, I see, this guy's hitting 7, but this guy's hitting 6. One player's hitting 8 or 9. And this is just a really quick, like, little refresher for me as I'm thinking about encounters. So for example, going back to this guy here, and this is just me thinking about stuff as I'm planning a game again. If the encounter goes south and they end up in a battle with this Lord of Snails, his armor class is 13. That's lower than the expected armor class of a monster going against 5th level characters. Knowing that some players are hitting 8 or 9, that means that this guy's going to be like every hit that they throw is basically going to be landing. Do I want to do anything about that? So it's just something to think about. Okay, so we've got Foundry. Now, during the game, actually before we get to that, what I will say is, like, when it's time to run the game, this is usually how I set it up. So I have my notebook on the side, I have my map pinned on the side as well, and then I have my character session notes here. I'll usually collapse this sidebar down, and so I just have everything I need right here, and then I can just quickly scroll over, check out what's going on here, make any quick notes that I need to, and that's just basically how I run the game. Now, besides this, I also run Foundry. Let me see if I can minimize this and open up my Foundry instance. As I said, my players are hybrid. I have some players playing in other states, some players playing, far away, and some players playing in my apartment. And Foundry is great because I host the games on my local network. I send that link out to... Where'd you go, bro? Come on now. There you are. My dog is barking. I send the link out to my players, and then we're all able to play and see what's going on. Wonderful. So if I open up Shrine, another nice thing about Foundry is that you pay for it once and that's it. You don't need any subscriptions, and that's nice. It is possible to continue paying subscriptions because there are a lot of people who make add-on modules or enhancements for Foundry, and if you want to use those, then you have to pay for their patron situation. But I've done my best to cull as many Patreon accounts as I can and really pay for the ones that I absolutely need. So this is my Foundry instance. Again, I'm not running my entire game out of here. There are people who use Foundry as a game master notebook and everything, and that's totally fine. That's cool for them. I don't, for a number of reasons. One, again, is, for example, if I need to pull up a stat block and I double click on a character, that extra second it takes between when I click on the character and when the stat block opens irritates me. And when you compound all those little extra seconds across an entire game, after running games out of Obsidian and seeing how instantly everything opens, it just feels like an eternity, and I don't like it. I also don't like the way that stat blocks are rendered here. The player sheets look great. I love the player sheets. If I double click here, double click, open, there it is. The player sheets look beautiful. But the monster sheets look trash. So I don't mess with those. But I do have a few things here that I run which make things nice. The first one are the health bars, as you can see. I have this module here which makes it quick and easy to add or remove damage, which is very nice. If I give this my poor Prendergast 25 points of damage, you see the health ring drops down. Here's an example of a condition. You see this guy, my shorty is prone. I can turn that off. If he's poisoned, it looks like that. So these are just a few things. And the reason why I do this is, again, I am running, because of my games are hybrid, I like to have certain things visible to everybody. So for example, when we go into combat, what I'll do is I'll have my players, I will start combat in here as well. I have a module in Foundry that lets me collect physical dice rolls, because I personally roll dice and some of my players do, but some players roll dice directly in Foundry and others roll it in D&D Beyond. Anyone rolling in D&D Beyond, those rolls are imported, they're pulled into Foundry. Anyone rolling physical dice can add what they rolled on the die here. It's going to add the modifier and give that answer right here. And then once I begin combat, the little combat modifier, the little combat tracker at the top will show what's going on. The reason why I have this is because that way, since everyone at the game has this open, everyone can see who's up in initiative and who's next. Besides my narrating that at the table, they can see it as well. And for anyone who's running their character sheets off of D&D Beyond, it's just totally fine. I ask that they just go ahead and add any damage that they take into here as well. That's why I have this module here. It's just so that it makes it really easy for them to very quickly add their damage here, and that way everyone can see, regardless of what other tools they're using, whether they're rolling physical or not, if they're rolling their characters and everything through Foundry, or if they prefer to use D&D Beyond. It just makes it fast and easy, and everyone can still see what's going on, and the players don't mind it. It works really well for me. I like it. As far as my running the game, again, I do not like the momentary delay for opening the stat blocks. The other thing is, when I'm DMing, I'm DMing off of my 13-inch MacBook Air, and that's it. I don't have any additional screens. And so every time I need to open a character sheet, it takes up a considerable part of the real estate of my screen, and then I have to keep closing them and opening them, especially if there's multiple monsters. Huge pain in the butt. So when it comes to running monsters, I will usually have this open full screen, and then I will have Obsidian open full screen. And let's say here we've got, let's say, they're running an encounter and they've got this guy. I will usually have it like this. So I have my stat block nice and big. I've got my party here. And so I just bounce back and forth between Foundry and Obsidian, and I use my stat blocks out of Obsidian. And I usually just deal with the damage here in Foundry. It's a little hit or miss. Sometimes it can get, it's just a little bit not like optimized, but I don't mind it. I'm still trying to find the best way to do things, but I like it much better this way than trying to run a full encounter from Foundry. For me, it's just not for me. I just don't like it. But that's Foundry. Let's go ahead and delete this combat. Was there anything else from this point? No, I don't think so. So at this point, we're in the game. We're running Foundry. We've got our encounter. We've got our notebook. I'm going to close Foundry down because it takes up quite a bit of resources. Besides Foundry and Obsidian, which are the two big ones that I use. Let's see, I've got my little notes here. I also use Kenku. Okay, so Kenku is a software that I use for audio, for running audio. And this is Kenku FM. It is wonderful. It is also free. I think, no, actually it's a one-time purchase. But for me, it's very worth it. And the way it works, it basically becomes like a user interface for, you can run like websites in here, stuff like that. You can have like apps. But the way that I use it is I have this connected directly to Discord. And when I start a game and I hit one of these buttons, it becomes a participant in that Discord server, in that voice channel. And the players can adjust the volume of Kenku as needed for their comfort level. And so what I usually do is maybe I'll have like, I might have like a D&D Beyond, like an adventure soundtrack, like one of these really long 4-hour long sounds. I will usually double that up and have two going at once. So I might have like some ambience or background music going, and then I might have something else going on top of that for sound effects. If I might have some suspenseful music, and then on top of that I might run some sounds from a dungeon from ambient mixer. And then when they get into combat, I'll like quiet those two down, and then I'll run a fight song that's very long. And then when the combat is over, I will go back to the music with the sound effects. I kind of like to live DJ the music as the session goes. There is a way to run all of this through Foundry. Foundry has a part of it that can run music, and you can even automate it, and it's really cool. But for me, I prefer to have the music separate from Foundry because some of my players are running on older computers and they don't have really great internet bandwidth. And for them, trying to run the map software plus Discord plus D&D Beyond possibly, it ends up being a lot for the machine, and everything starts to lag. During combat, if they can't see what's going on, they've told me before, like they can follow along with the descriptions I give during the combat, because I'm very like, I do a lot to remind people of like who's going on, what's next, what's happening. And so if they can't necessarily see the map, they can get away with it, but I want them to at least still be able to hear the music, because to me having an immersive experience is very important, and music is a really big deal for me. It's like a cornerstone of my game. I really like having good music. So Kenku for music, so that people who can't run Foundry for whatever reason can still hear my sweet DJing. Besides Kenku, I think, let's see, Kenku, where are we? Craig. So Craig is a bot that I downloaded. It's a free service, and what it does is it connects. It's a Discord bot. It connects to Discord, and then when you're in the Discord voice channel, you invite Craig to join, and the bot will automatically start recording a distinct audio track for every participant in the group. When it's done, you hit end recording, it will end that recording, and what you end up with are, let's say you have 4 people, you have 4 tracks of the same length, no matter who joined at what point, you have 4 tracks that are synced up, the same length, ready to go, and you can download it as one merged track, 4 individual tracks, and then if you want, they even have like slightly enhanced audio, like AI stuff, where it will auto level all of the different tracks to make one track that's kind of all at the same level. That's what I use to record the audio for my After Work Adventures group. It is wonderful and I love it. It makes my life easy, and the audio coming out of it is really great. That is one of the services I do pay for. It's $4 a month, but for that $4 I get better audio that I can record from, and my files stay on their server for up to a month, as opposed to just the standard 7 days if you do the free one, and I prefer that. I just like having that safety. D&D Beyond I mentioned. Bunch I will show you at the end, because Bunch is really cool, but what it is it's a free software that you install on Mac, and when you click it, so the icon lives up here. Oh no, it's closed. I have to go find it. When you click on it, It basically runs a series of programs as you tell it to. So for me, let's say I'm getting ready to run a game. I click the little bunch icon. I click on, where is it? Let me see if I can find it. Bunch. And I'll show all of this. There it is. There's my little icon. So let's say I'm getting ready to DM Hidden Shrine of Damawatch. And when I click this, it's going to open every single program that I need in order to run that game. It's going to open Obsidian, Discord, Foundry, Terminal on Macs, because that's what I use to create the link that the remote players can join from. It's going to open my Brave internet browser here, which is my default internet browser. It's going to open that directly to every single page of the character sheet. When I'm done with all of that, it will close everything for me. It is wonderful, and I love it. And so that's during the game. And then after the game. So once the game is over, and I've closed everything, I will go to the link provided by the Craig bot, and it will take me to my private server thing where my audio is being stored. I download all that as 4 distinct AI auto leveled tracks. I edit all of that out, and that's what I use as the audio for my videos for After Work Adventures. That's for the audio for there. But I also will do that even for the games that I'm not filming and uploading to YouTube. I try to record every instance. I try to get an audio recording of every game. The reason why I do that is because once it's done, and I have that audio track, I run it through this really wonderful tool called WhisperMac. With WhisperMac, when you open a file, an audio file, it will then run a full transcription using AI. And what you have is something that looks like this. This is a full transcription. This is in segments, but so then from here, I can export this as a, like, let's say I want to do full transcript and I want to break it down into sentences, and this just gives me a really rough transcript that I can use, which is very nice because I can provide it to the players in case they want to scroll through the text document for a specific part of the game to get the name of something or whatever. But one of the things that I really, really, really like about this, which I don't think it's going to work now because it wasn't working earlier, but I have this transcript here, and if I click game summary, I'll move myself so you can see. I'll move myself so that you can see. Here. So I'll move myself. Okay, move myself so you can see. But basically, you've got these prompts here, and when you click on a prompt, which you can adjust, you can make more, you can delete, and then you hit submit, what it'll do is it will, when it's working, it will create a summary of what the transcript is. And it works surprisingly well, and one of the things I like most about it is that if you were to copy this and paste it into ChatGPT, 22,000 tokens is way more than ChatGPT can read. But I'm thinking there might be some parsing on the back end of this website, because when you run the game summary from within here, it gives you a full summary of everything in here. You do have to pay for this. I gave it like a limit of like $20 or something, and when it gives me the game summary, it creates a summary, and then at the bottom it gives me bullets for my NPCs they met, tasks or goals or anything like that. Unfortunately, I think this only works if you ask this as soon as it's done running the transcription. I ran this transcription this morning. I saved the file, and now I opened the software and opened the file again. And so I think that disconnected the transcript from this particular bot. But I can show you what those look like. And this takes me to kind of toward the last part of this, which is like what I do after the game. So I've got the audio, I ran it through transcription, I got the summary, and now it's time to feed that back to my players. To do that, I use this tool which is funny and not funnily called ObsidianPortal. It's a website I just recently found, and it's really wonderful. And this is it. This website has a free version, and they have a premium version, which is only $4 more. The premium version gives you more features, but this enables me to provide a really nice wiki for my players. So if I go to Afterwork Adventurers, this is kind of the back end of the wiki, but if I go to homepage, this is more or less what my players see. There's more buttons on my end because I'm the GM for this, and so I have the option to add stuff. But this is the home screen. This is what you see. This is when you first get to the site. This is a little hello for people who are not my players that happen to stumble across my campaign. But in here, I've added all of my players. They're all here. Any NPCs they meet are going to be added in here. For example, Octavia is a DMPC. She's my beautiful, beautiful rogue that's kind of hanging out with the party as a documentist. She's journaling and keeping an eye on them. And then Tolokes, they just met. And so this is a little bit about where they encountered him and what the last encounter between them was. And it cross-links. So there's Shorty, and when I hover over it, sometimes it'll show the little photo of the character, which is nice. And then if we go into Adventure Log, I can now show you what that looks like. So when I run the transcription software and I ask ChatGPT to give me a summary, this is what it looks like. This is directly from that transcription software. TLDR, after navigating through a hazardous hallway, etc., and then the goals are here. A different version, the one for game 1, because they met some NPCs and some other stuff. Here's the TLDR, and then there's NPCs they met and tasks and goals. And so this is directly from ChatGPT. You can set it to transcribe, walk away, grab some coffee, come back 7 minutes later. It's done. Go into that ChatGPT section, get it to run a recap for you. And then I just drop that right in here. And everything is nice and easy and ready to go. As far as the audio that I edited and exported, I will load that up to, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I have a subscription to Mega Drive, which is kind of like Google Drive, except it's better at handling audio files. So this is it. This is Mega Drive. And if I go to Phandelver below, you can see that here's the transcript of our previous game. Here's the actual audio. And so let's say some of the players couldn't make it. They can listen to the audio track of that game, almost like a podcast. And they can, if they want to, they can hear what happened while they were out. And that's just an extra thing that I provide to the players. So they have the wiki, they have an audio, they've got a text thing, a transcript, and I think that sums up everything. Let me see. I've got Bunch, which I'm going to show in a second. Editing software, Whisper Mac, Obsidian Wiki, Discord. Yeah, that's just about everything. A couple of things to note. Things that I wanted to mention. Things that I didn't mention already. Let me open up Discord, because I did want to show you guys how I organize my Discord. But while that's loading up, one of the things that I do use during my pre-production, or really anytime, mostly during like, not necessarily when I'm sitting down to prepare for the game, but like, let's say I'm out on a shopping line at a store, or I have some downtime at work at the office or something, and I'm like noodling or whatever. I do also use Notion. Now, for me, the notebook that I use, the Obsidian tool, they do have a sync software, and they have a mobile app. And so if you pay, I think it's like $8 or $10 a month, you get access to your full notebook on your phone. However, my notebook has like my game, like full adventure stories. It's got all my monsters. It's got icons and tokens and all sorts of madness in there. I don't want that on my phone, nor do I need it on my phone. When I'm thinking about stuff for the game, I'm usually in like an ideation stage where I'm asking myself a lot of questions about who and what and where and why. And so that's where Notion comes in. This is another tool I use for D&D. This is my plot thoughts page. It's just a page. It's just an open page where I just endlessly think about stuff. And so at this point in the game, when I started the game, the D&D, the Afterwork Adventurers game with the Hidden Shrine of Damwachan, when I started that game, what I told my players was that the gods were at war because the verdant guardian Ninersog was missing. She is responsible for making an ambrosia that keeps the gods healthy and young and gives them their power, but she's missing, and no one knows where she is, and so the rest of the gods are starting to fight for various reasons. But what I didn't know at the time is what was going on with her. I didn't know where she was, or who kidnapped her, or if she was kidnapped, or if she was hiding, was she locked somewhere, was she trapped? I didn't know any of that. But now I'm about to run the 4th game, and I'm at the point where I want to be able to start dropping little hints and clues about what's going on. I want to give little lore seeds sprinkled throughout the rest of the dungeon that will give them things that they can look for when they get out of the dungeon. And so I decided to spend some time thinking about what's going on here. And so I just opened up a page, a page in Notion, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see, okay, so what happened to her? Maybe she's dying somewhere. What's killing her? Or maybe she's kidnapped. Who kidnapped her? Was she locked away somewhere? I put a bunch of these questions down, and then I started filling them out like, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or maybe it's the other. And then as I was I would ask some questions, and I would sit and I would think about okay, well, what are other instances where I've experienced something like this in other things that I've read? And then I thought about the Sandman comic books by Neil Gaiman. And in those comic books, the character Morpheus, who's basically Dream, some mortal somewhere tries to capture the goddess Death, who's Morpheus' sister, but messes up and captures Morpheus instead. And so Morpheus spends several human generations trapped in someone's basement because they kidnapped him and they didn't know what to do with him, and they were doing crazy stuff, and because Morpheus was trapped, it had weird effects on the world of sleeping. So people who were sleeping got stuck in sleeping and wasted away their whole lives in sleep, unable to wake up. People who were awake were never able to sleep, and it was just a really interesting thing. And that got me thinking about all this other stuff, and I was like, okay, well, maybe she's trapped. Who kidnapped her? One of the other gods, maybe, or maybe one of the mortals. If she's trapped, what if it's like Morpheus? What if she's trapped because someone tried to kidnap her to use her for their means, but they don't know how, or they didn't, or whatever they were trying didn't work out as intended. And so I'm almost talking to myself here, and I'm like, okay, well, I like this idea. If she's trapped, then and someone trapped her and is trying to use her for something, but their plan is backfired or isn't working. Is it immortal? Is it Gaston? Because Gaston is someone the players know about who's evil and hates magic. And I was like, yeah, let's say it's Gaston. He kidnapped her because she's the one who keeps the other magic users going. Without her, magic will die. And that's what he thinks. Maybe that's not true, but that's what he thinks. If Ninersog is the creator of all things, then what happens if she goes missing? And that got me thinking about when Morpheus got locked away in this guy's cellar, things started happening that the mortals were felt. And so, I'm like, well, maybe it's kind of like in Star Trek, each captain in Star Trek has these special codes, and at one point I think Captain Picard gets kidnapped and they're trying to force him to give the codes that will allow the bad guy to do some crazy things. So I'm like, what if maybe she knows where bits of the God Killer are? And this is another thing that I'm thinking about related to other parts of the lore, but I'm like, what if she knows where some of these God Killer elements are, and he's trying to get her to confess where they are, kind of like the captain codes in Star Trek. So he has her in his basement, and she's trying to reach out for help, and she offers Dr. Ford clues to help her, I guess her, because Dr. Ford is her find the pieces needed to build the God Killer. And that gets me back into, okay, so if my players are in this dungeon and they're walking around, maybe my player sees a little ghost of a young woman or something, and run through a wall where in the module there's a secret door, and that secret door opens, and then they get to experience something related to the world, but also in the dungeon. And so I did want to highlight Notion because I do use it as part of my game mastering thing. It's an app that I have on my phone. It's free. It works great. It works offline. I can just open it up, type out a bunch of stuff, or open it up on any browser anywhere once I log in, and just noodle and just like explain stuff away. And it's been really helpful for helping me advance the storyline even when I'm not sitting at my computer. Because the other thing is with Obsidian, if you're not paying for sync, all of the files are local on my computer. So it's not like Notion that hosts all the stuff up in the cloud and I can access it from anywhere with any machine. With Obsidian, I need all my notes. I need to be on my computer to get all my notes. But with Notion, I can just open it up. I have all my notes ready to go anywhere, and it's wonderful. So I do use this. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was Discord. So here's Discord. Uh-oh, my dog is upset. My dog is always upset. So this is one version of Discord. This is again, this is a recap. I'm in the recap section on Discord. This is one recap that I generated using Whisper Mac. I ran the audio from my episode 2 through. I got the transcription. I asked it to give me a high-level overview. Here we are. These are some other things that I have going on in this server. Backstory. This is before I found the ObsidianPortal's website. I was using Discord as my makeshift wiki. So when I had finalized another portion of the world and I was ready to share it to the players, I would do it here. So I would give them, these are handouts, this is information on the world and the gods and stuff like that. The handouts here, this is a map that I made and I shared to them, that kind of stuff. Information about the world, like FAQs when we were first starting. I gave them this kind of FAQ doc, which answered some questions about like, what is it like to live in a world where the gods are at war? And what is it like to how does it affect me? How does it affect stuff like the magic, like all of this? So I made a little FAQ for them and I shared that there. Map links, that's where I share links for my Foundry game once I'm running Foundry and I have that link that I'm ready to share for my remote players. That's where I drop it. Stars and Wishes is where it's just basically an empty channel, an empty thing. It's basically that. It's there so that if someone had a really great time in game and they want to highlight that, they can share it. If there's something they would like to see, they can share that too. That's there as well. Schedule planning is just if we have to postpone a game for whatever reason, I'll usually post a poll there to see what next day will work. And then another version of this is this other server that I have for my Fandelver group. And that's this guy here. So for the Lost Mine of Fandelver, that game is been going on for a little bit. However, my games typically run on average like 2.5 hours as opposed to the standard 4 hours, and I meet every other week. And so certain aspects of my game get kind of truncated. And in this case, the players for my Lost Mine of Fandelver game, they did the first portion where they get into town and then they basically immediately jumped right into the main plot line. As soon as they got to town, they spent like 1 or 2 nights and then they immediately went to go deal with whatever they needed to deal with. And now that they're done with that, they're about to leave the town to go follow up on that next section of the game. But they didn't spend a lot of time at the table interacting with any of the other NPCs. And so what I was talking at the end of the last game, as they were preparing to leave this town, I was basically like, hey, like, there's some NPCs you guys haven't met yet. They have some side missions. And, like, this is just like, we're all gamers here. We understand side missions and stuff. I'm not like foiling anything or giving away any like secrets or anything. We all kind of like, everyone at the table knew what was going on. They knew that there were probably side missions they were missing. And so I was like, hey guys, we have these side missions. There are a couple of characters in town that you haven't met yet that have some stuff. What do you say, after having finished this big battle, you guys spend a few days in town recuperating, and during that time, you meet some of the other NPCs. They let you know what they've got going on in their world, and then I will share their side quests to you in Discord. the players love the idea, and so I did it this way. And it's just a really nice way to give them this information in a kind of off-camera way, where it's like, okay, you know, you've met these people and this is their situation. I made little photos for them to show, like, okay, this is like the town master's job post, and it's this kind of fun photo. I found this is actually art provided by someone who made really nice handouts for the Phandelver game. It's on DM's Guild. I'll share it in the description box in case you want to buy it. It's like $2, but totally worth it because I really love the art and I love being able to give them handouts whenever possible. But I made images to serve as little banners for each of the missions, and I explained the situation and who's what and what's who. Like from all of these, the only NPC they actually met was Darren, and the rest of these they just kind of meeting for the first time here. And then once they had all the side missions, because we kind of finished that last game and now they're heading out, and I just shared this information to them this past week, in the session planning I have this here where it's like, okay, after capturing a Yarno, you spend a few days recovering. During that time you talk to a few folks in town and they ask various favors of you. Please vote on which quests you would like to dig into during our next game. The deadline to vote is Friday, which has just passed. Please hit me up if you have questions. SM is side mission, MM is main mission. And so the players over the course of the week cast their votes. The poll closed, and so now I know when we meet for the this upcoming Thursday, we're gonna kick it off with Darren and his undead. And depending on how that goes, I suspect they're gonna want to go across the street and deal with the hag, which is actually did not even have one vote. But I have a funny feeling we're gonna end up going there next, so I might prep that a little bit just to have it on the side. But this is how I handle that stuff. And yeah, I think at this point, I think that's pretty much it. Just to recap everything, before the game and between games, if I have ideas and I'm on the go, I'll capture them in Notion. When I'm getting ready to actually sit down and prepare my content for the week, I open up Obsidian. I've got my notes, I've got my map, I've got my player dashboard. All of that's ready to go. During the game, I have Foundry running, and all my players have an instance of Foundry running, and that way they can see the initiative tracker, they can see their tokens, the health status, the health bars, their statuses and everything. I run the games through Discord, and I use Kenku for audio, and then I run a bot called Craig, which downloads audio tracks for each one of the participants. After the game is over, I close everything down. I do a quick edit on the audio tracks. I export that out. I'm basically cutting out any noises or like any non-game related conversations. So like if we take a 5-minute break, I usually leave everything recording, but I don't want that in the final recording, so I'll cut out any breaks or anything like that. I run that audio through Whisper Mac. I get the full transcription. I save that transcription as a text doc, and then I also use ChatGPT to get a high-level summary from that transcription. I feed that to the players as a recap. I provide them with the audio log and the full transcription as a text document, and then I also provide them with the wiki using the ObsidianPortal's website wiki, which is free. And I think that covers it. If I left anything out, if I passed over anything, if you had any other questions, please let me know, and I will be very happy to go over any of this stuff in more detail. I hope that this was fun and interesting. I love seeing how other game masters run their games, and so that's part of the reason why I made this, is so that other people can see how I run my games. But yeah, thank you for hanging out. I'll catch you again soon.